So we have a couple of questions here based on their experience they will be sharing with us. Please, in your experience, Tosi, what is the biggest reason organizations struggle to achieve ROI or ROE on their training investment?
We've heard a lot since yesterday, but I just want to re-echo it that as we conclude this conference, we need to go back with a mindset that training is not an event, it is an investment. So when we see it from that perspective, it is going to drive our decision. It is going to drive conversations we have with leaders, with managers within our organization when it comes to return on investment and return on expectation. And as we all know, return on investment is majorly measuring the financial impact, financial benefit, comparing it with the cost invested into the training, right? And of course, when it comes to return on expectation, what are we measuring here? We are measuring, did the training meet up with the expectation of the stakeholders? Now, what I've seen in my little experience in learning and development is that sometimes we deploy training. We go into training deployment without setting a very concrete agreement and alignment with the stakeholders. We don't understand what the outcomes of the training will look like. So we just go into training because we already have a training calendar, we already have a training expectation for the year, okay. And then this is actually limiting the ROI and the ROE on training deployment.
Thank you, Tosin. So from the training we've had this morning, we have to just not look only on ROI, but also expectation. What is this training meant to solve? It's not just money. It could also be behavioral change or skill gap. Thank you, Tosin. So the next, I'll be asking Nkechi Ojiego. Why do you think there is often an overemphasis on delivery and an under-emphasis on transfer in most L&D?
Thank you so much for the question. Since yesterday and up until now, we've been talking about impact. And for training to impact your organization, there has to be clearly set out goals, and there has to be metrics, measurement metrics to really check at the end of the day how training has impacted an organization. So, but you find out that the reverse is the case. Most times, HR and L&D, and that's also the perception of a lot of business owners, that HR and L&D, they're just interested in how many programs have I completed at the end of the year. How many employees attended program? 1,000 employees attended programs. How many smile sheets have we filled? On a scale of 1 to 5, all of them scored us 5, 5, and all that. So there's no emphasis on what are the KPIs? What are the KPIs? What are the business priorities that we really want to, or what are the business challenges that we really want to solve with training? There's no holistic, review of the performance of the organization and unit by unit. This unit, what are your key responsibilities? How are you delivering on these responsibilities? So we don't do this analysis. We don't sit with our stakeholders to really understand what their pain points are. We need to sit with them, do a performance analysis with them. This is what the business has asked them to achieve. Where are they? Why are they not achieving, what the business has asked them to achieve? So when we sit with these stakeholders and understand what their pain points are, we curate with them because it's a partnership. You curate with them on what needs to go into the course or the training to address those issues. During during the process of even, putting together the presentation slides, at some point, you're supposed to take it back to these stakeholders so that they can review and validate that, yes, everything we discussed, that our pain points have been addressed in this context. So it will address their expectations before we now deliver. So we don't end up, focusing on how many people have attended training. At the end of the day, you can't even measure the impact. How many people, filled evaluation forms. And when you go back to these business leaders and unit leaders, they can't even tell you what has changed. Because ideally, at the end of training, a month or 2 months, it depends on what works for your organization. You should revert back to the line managers and even these unit leaders to see if there has been changes in the behaviors and the performance of their team after, attending these interventions. So we need to focus more on meeting their KPIs, meeting the strategic priorities, as against how many people have gone on training or how many interventions we have delivered at the end of.
Thank you, Nkechi. This show she wants to school us on all the information she's been loaded since yesterday to date. And I'm sure most of us that have been here since yesterday, we agree with her. It must solve a problem. Your learning strategies must address a problem, identify problem in the business, and not just training. Training shouldn't just be a benefit. It's part of my benefit. I must attend that training and then show you my certificate. So we'll go to Dr. Adesoji. Dr. Adesoji, how do you currently ensure that there is alignment between business goals and training objectives before training begins?
All right, thank you. And also, riding on the existing protocol, I know a lot has been said since yesterday. Well, the first thing is to set the objective clearly. Let's make sure that the objectives are clear about it. What we really need to achieve on the training programs. What are the things we are set out to achieve? What are the gaps we actually need to bridge? So if those objectives are not well outlined, we just realize that the foundation is already faulty. And what does this mean? It simply means whatsoever measure we are putting in place will not actually bring up any form of effectiveness on that particular training. As a sage once said that sometimes we measure what is not measurable, and sometimes we do not measure what is measurable. Essentially, we realize that what has been our focus in trying to assess those trainings were not the major reason why those trainings are actually meant to be in the first place. So basically, the first thing is to ensure that we engage stakeholders for clarity. Why do we really want to organize this training? Is it for behavioral change? Is it for regulatory information? Is it for technological change? There could be any reason, there could be several reasons why a training program, is being held. And the first thing is let's set that goal clearly and let's ensure that we run through it and then we follow we adopt the right method in ensuring that those trainings are delivered. So basically, stakeholders engagement collaboration is very key in ensuring that we address the training that is being taken.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adesoji. I know it's mostly, most time, industry specific. I know for those in oil and gas, based on Nigerian content, and when you are packaging bid, they will always ask you to present classroom notes and then added with the certificate of attendance for you to qualify for a bid. And it depends on the industry and also the company involved and the stakeholders. Next is Dr. Michael Ogu. I'm coming to you. How have you successfully engaged line managers to support training transfer before, during, and after delivery?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to speak. I'll cast my mind back to my days in Seven Bottling Company PLC, and I think that will be a practical example because the manufacturing industry, it's easy to use the scenarios there to drive the lessons home. So I remember when I was HR business partner at Seven Bottling Company PLC in the Ikeja plant, we were going through a lot of changes, transformational changes, and we were trying to erect a new production line. And so one of the first things, apart from understanding the needs of each department, like Soji and Nkechi had said, we had to sit down to articulate what success will look like. When the new line is erected, when we deploy staff, what will success look like? On production numbers, on production volumes, on quality volumes, on trade volumes and all of that. So we had to articulate what success would look like when those trainings were over. So the line manager said, success will look like a minimum of 1 million bottles a day produced on that line. So anything short of that was a no-brainer. From the quality angle, success looked like minimum 1% rejections, all right, on all those parameters. So one, understand the business needs. Two, articulate what success will look like. And it must come down to practical things. And I think thirdly was to get line managers to understand that if these people went through the training, no matter the number of days they were off work, we showed them in practical terms how it was going to make their job easy and how over a period of time, those people who went on those training would transfer those skills to their subordinates to make their job easy. So it comes back to practical scenarios. How can you convince them with those numbers and those scenarios? And I think that you'll be able to get the job done. Let me keep it with those 3 points so that I don't overstretch. But there are other things that you could do to get support from line managers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emo. Okay, so of course on the designing using the PDP, our coach Ihana Cho has mentioned during her section. The next is I will come back to Oluwatosin again on during training design. What design principle or techniques have helped you create training that is both engaging and transfer friendly?
Okay, so maybe I should approach this question this way.
Okay.
My job, majorly, I'm responsible for leadership development,
okay,
training within my organization. And before I carry out any learning intervention, sometimes we get a request from line manager to say, okay, I want my direct report to go through this particular training. But for us to be sure that this is the exact need, we go further to have conversations with the HR business partners. We have conversation with the manager to really understand that we are addressing the real problem. So before we come up to design a learning initiative, there's a conversation, there's a need analysis that we carry out to really understand that this is a concern, and of course to also help us to understand the right learning intervention that we are to deploy. So we work collaboratively with the managers within the organization,
all right,
with the HR business partners, depending on the organization, just like you mentioned.
Yes.
And of course, in my own organization, aside the HR business partners, we also have different academies within our organization. So aside leadership development, I have an academy who is in charge of supply chain. There's an academy who is in charge of sales workforce. So sometimes we also work with the head of this academy to understand that we are designing the right learning intervention. So leveraging conversation, leveraging learning need analysis, gap analysis to really understand the problem, then, coming up with the right solution.
Thank you so much.
Can I just add something?
Okay,
To what you
Nkechi.
So in ensuring that, if I recall the question, that's
Yes.
the design, right?
Yeah,
so
design
it's
your
also
training,
imperative that you take
transfer.
cognizance of the different learning styles of your audience, because some people learn better when they see.
Yeah.
Some learn better when they hear, some when they role play, and some like to read. So in designing relevant content, it's important to take cognizance of your audience. There are different learning styles. Ensure that the contents are engaging. We've said it repeatedly here that you must also build transfer, even before training, even before the training happens. So while you're designing, make sure that you build in, metrics to make transfer easy. Do you understand?
Yeah,
So
and
you're also
effective.
building in opportunity for them to role play, to apply case studies, to apply what they've learned. And of course, even after the training has happened, are they still able to, is there a support system
apply.
to know how well they are applying what they've learned, and even if they've experienced challenges, how somebody, whether it's the trainer or the consulting firm, is supporting them to make sure that they have a smooth transition. That's from training back to their workspaces in transferring the things they've learned.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much,
Thank you,
Nkechi. So the need to get the buy-in of stakeholders, understanding their pain points, cannot be overemphasized. You don't just create training without taking into account the audience and the delivery style. There are some kind of training when you are projecting slides, you see people sleeping because he's not speaking the same language with them. That is not what they want to hear. Some just got into that classroom to while away time. So understanding their needs and understanding their own their attention lifespan too matters a lot in creating training transfer effectiveness. Thank you so much, Nkechi and Tosin. So I'll come back again to Dr. Michael Ogu. You say you still have more to tell us. So I'll ask, what mechanism or structures do you have in place to follow up with learners and ensure application on the job?
Okay, so let me share what I did at Polaris Bank. I had the privilege of leading culture transformation at Polaris Bank, and there was both a learning and behavioral transformation component. And regardless of what the outcomes you are looking for, whether they are behavioral, whether they are process-driven, whether they are driven by transfer of skills and all of that, the 3RO model still works any day, anytime. Recognize, reward, and reinforce. If you do not recognize, reinforce, and reward the outcomes that are already in display as a result of a training or a learning intervention, it's dead on arrival. So what did we do? We did a combination of gamification and rewarding behaviors to drive the learning and transformation component. So we started driving behaviors in the culture transformation program called BRACE. Bias for action, respect, accountability, collaboration, empathy. And so what we did was that we created a leaderboard. The moment you see anybody display these behaviors, go log it on the leaderboard. And then at the end of every quarter, there were monetary gifts given to people. But before we released those monetary gifts, we did our due diligence back end to confirm that those behaviors. So there was line manager validation, there was divisional, it even went up to the highest level to validate those behaviors. So the 3RO framework doesn't fail, all right? For whatever outcome, whether it's a behavioral outcome, a process outcome, a change outcome, whatever outcome, you recognize, you reinforce, and you reward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. M.O. So we can actually reinforce the behavior post-training evaluation, and through reward, you can get people to do or change their behavioral attitude to work. I'll go to Nkechi Ejibo to also share her experience. How are you currently measuring the success of your training programs beyond attendance and completions?
Okay, first off, like Dr. Emo said, you have to establish what success would look like. So for example, and I'll use an example of my time in MTN,
Okay.
having clearly defined one of our goals, which was to quadruple our revenue. So we had this vending platform where, we vend airtime, people can purchase airtime and all that. Because part of our strategic goal, business imperative for that year was to if there's anything like zillion improve our revenue and all that, it was part of the goals. And one of the ways for us to meet that target is to make sure that the different platforms that helps us generate these incomes are all up and running.
Okay.
And we have divisions that manage those platforms, our IT infrastructure department. And so we have employees manning a particular, that's the vending platform, and they were having issues because of skill gap, right? Then what we used to do was when we had issues, we would do like a screen dump to Microsoft, to troubleshoot and, and whilst we're still waiting for Microsoft to get back to us, we're losing money, and billing is per second. So we've realized that we've established our business priority, right? We've also ascertained the issues, that's the skill gaps, right? And so we know that we want to increase revenue, but our people do not have the capacity to do that. In this scenario, definitely they needed skill upgrade. Training would help us address it. Do you understand? So, though we had initial challenge getting the vendor and all that, at the end of the day, we got the vendor in to train our people on how to better man that platform.
Okay.
And I can tell you that even after the training ended, and they were applying all the lengths, because, this is practical. Our revenues skyrocketed, went up, right? And every time, so for us, that is one success. We established what success means for us, and we are achieving it because revenue kept going up, because now that they are better skilled, they are better able to manage that platform, and it was no longer going, there was reduction in our downtime on that platform. Do you understand? So success for us is ensure that that platform was always up and running, and our employees were constantly upskilled to keep, managing that platform. Remember that technology changes, skills change every day, And so as that platform was getting bigger and getting more robust, and we needed more skilled hands, we're getting people, and we're also improving them by exposing them to more interventions to make sure that they keep managing that platform so that we keep meeting, that business goal of increasing our revenue. So this is one
Thank you so much, Nkechi. How many of us are learning from their experience? Can I see your hands up? If you cannot hear them, or if they are not making sense, let me hear you. Let me see your hands up. Okay, that means they are making a point, and I hope we are all learning, because this real life experience is not. They are not reading it from book. Okay, so I'll come back to Dr. Adesoji. Your challenging moment. Have you ever led or sponsored a training that failed to deliver results? What did you learn, Doctor?
Wow, sometimes I just feel, why the fake story, But really, failure is part of learning. And one of those things that, let me relate this while I was in banking. One of the programs that I did then that I won't say failed, but I encountered quite a number of challenges. And I know one or two people might also be a witness here, because we engaged one or two people to also run that program with us at some point. I worked in a bank that is a case of David swallowing, David eventually killing Goliath. A smaller bank overtaking, decided to acquire a bigger bank. And one thing we had to deal with was actually the culture issue. And they were looking at how do you ensure that we acculturalize people effectively, especially the larger size of people that had not really formed their culture, because the bank itself was also, they just amalgamated not quite long with other banks before our bank acquired them. So it was a big one, it was a very tough one. So we were saddled with the responsibility of dealing with two things. The first one was acculturation, and then the second one was to ensure that we have seamless integration, whereby nobody feels disgruntled, everybody just feels that sense of belonging. So we came up with a framework, acculturation framework, and a bridged one for that matter that we are going to run nationwide. Firm-wide, across the country, where we have all the presence of the swallowed bank, as the case may be. So we had serious issue trying to bring up our culture and explaining to these people that, okay, this is the new DNA of our current bank. Of course, people just say, learning is so interesting. People can just sit down. You don't know who is actually learning. It depends on, and that mindset wasn't there. So the first challenge is how do we ensure that we have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset from the people that we're actually training. So at some point, we realized that the level of attrition was going up, despite the fact that we tried every means possible in ensuring that everybody was carried along. Even at the leadership level, at the strategic level, we brought in the two banks to ensure that you have to fight for your shirt like having a football team based on your competence. And we came up with that particular framework. We ran the training. But one thing that I think we didn't really do well is the post-training aspect of the whole exercise. Because when you are trying to also build a culture, when you are running a acculturation program, you also need to consider certain level of competency base, which are from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. There are 4 stages, basically. Unconscious incompetence speaks to, I do not know that I don't know. Unconscious, conscious incompetence speaks to, okay, I don't know, but now I know that I don't know. Conscious competence actually speaks to, I know, and now I can do it. Unconscious simply means that you can even do it without anybody running after you. Just like you are driving, some of us, we don't even think about where is our house. Just get into your car, before you know it, you are thinking of so many things. But when you started learning driving, they will say that your mind must be there. You shouldn't think of any other, just focus on the steering. It's just like a baby trying to ride a bicycle as well. It got to a time you ride it seamlessly, but there was a time you rise and fall. So those are processes, those are stages when we realize that they are, we didn't really go through the post-training aspect effectively. We engaged, quality people, veterans to come and train. We invested a lot, millions of naira at that time, running into hundreds of millions to push that program. Unfortunately, good planning, in terms of pre-training exercise, good delivery, unfortunately, the post-training exercise wasn't well followed up. And I think that was the major reason that bedeviled that particular project.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ade. So they are not even meant to be given certificate of implementation. So because of our time, we'll take questions from the audience or the online, the physical audience or the online audience. Any question from the audience? Any question? Any question from the audience? What about the online audience? Or you want to add to what the panelists have said? Or share your experience with us too? Any question? Okay. All right.
So, in addition to what I said earlier, let me talk about the 3 C's that we must pay attention to if transfer effectiveness will get at an all-time high. And I call them the triplets of culture, context, and considerations. And I mean management considerations. You see, because I've driven cultural transformation in a large-scale bank firsthand, I can tell you that the leadership component of culture, if you don't get it right, transfer effectiveness is dead on arrival. I can tell you for free. Second point is context. And context in the sense, what type of organization is it? Is it a one-man business, owner management business, I beg your pardon, or is it, yes, and I tell HR practitioners and L&D practitioners, for your experience to be rounded, you must work in both one-man businesses and structured organizations. Okay. One-man businesses, the decision stops with the owner of the company. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yeah. So the context is very important. The context you find yourself. 2 organizations will never be the same, even if they have equally skilled people. because of those things, they blur the lines. And then lastly, management considerations. In this context, what is important to management? If transfer effectiveness is not important, guess what? They will not create the enabling environment for people to now begin to apply what they have learned. I once worked for an organization where I was to be off work officially. But guess what? Throughout the period I was in the training, they kept sending me emails. So how do you expect me to concentrate when I was officially released for the training? So transfer effectiveness, very important. Let's pay attention to issues of culture, context, and considerations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emo. So the leaders buy in. Is it a one-man owned business? Is it an enterprise or public? In fact, the public sector is a different ball game. It's the result of what I ordered versus what I got and what is allowed to go on here. Tosin, please. What is one mindset or practice you believe every HR/L&D leader must adopt to become a true champion of TTE? Training, transfer, effectiveness.
Yes, I know. Thank you so much. Okay, so when I walked in to this morning, I met a very interesting conversation around learning, transfer, effectiveness.
Yeah.
And within my organization, this is how I present myself to people. I am not just a trainer. I'm not just a facilitator. I am there to work with people to grow them, to grow their mind, to prepare them, for bigger opportunity, to make them better managers and better leaders. So if there is a comment, if there's one thing that I want to leave with you, the HR practitioners, L&D practitioners in the room, is to go with the mindset that you are positioned in that organization today to help people grow, to help people develop. And I think this is what will be shaping your action on a daily basis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tosin. So just one or 60 seconds advice to all the leaders here, starting from Dr. Soji. What would you advise, your fellow colleagues to adopt to make training transfer effective?
All right. For leaders here, L&D, HR professionals, one thing I would like to say is we need to stay curious. We need to learn and deepen our knowledge. You can't give what you do not have. Let's make sure that we have this curiosity mindset, insatiable appetite for knowledge. We have to go deeper and wider in our depth for what we, for our profession and what we do. And again, the second one that aligns with that is collaboration. I'll continue to say collaboration. You don't know it all. The fact that you are the head of HR, you are the head of L&D, doesn't mean you have that epitome of knowledge. You need to collaborate effectively with knowledge, subject matter experts, to make sure that you deliver content that really matters to them. That is where you can actually have that transfer from that learning content.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soji. And Dr. Emo, one word, please.
Okay, so I would say get comfortable with data. And I was telling Tolu Afonja on our table that there are 6 things in data HR practitioners have not learned to maximize. So I've put it in an acronym I call SPIRIT, so that you will not forget.
Scholar.
There are stories in data. There are patterns in data. There is information in data. There are relationships between the variables. There are insights and there are trends. I'm a C-suite executive. I don't get approvals with 15 slides. Maximum 2 slides. The executive summary. The next page is the commercials and what the ROI and the ROE looks like and how the measures of success will be translated to revenue. And that's it. But that cannot happen if you do not get comfortable with data. If you can maximize how to use these 6 things in data to your advantage, I'm sure you are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maximize the information you have at hand. Build your data. for taking decisions. So finally from Kechi.
Okay, so my final word or advice to us would be that we should move from being order takers to strategic partners, honestly, because we must work with business leaders, departmental heads, to actually help them solve their challenges, solve their problems. As long as training is not solving business problems, they will keep cutting our budget. Yeah. And for CEOs and business owners here, we need to get you need to get more involved, honestly. I was having a conversation with one of the participants yesterday, and she said she's so impressed with Joke. She's a C-suite and she's here. And she was like, how many of them do we have here? You know why? Because most times in most organizations, it's not their thing. They are not interested.
Yeah, they are busy.
But if they do not get involved, honestly, nothing will change. I have worked in organizations where we're trying to change the cultural operating system of the organization, to encourage active collaboration, complete candor. Candor, where you can actually speak respectfully to even your seniors. And so our then CEO came up with this slogan that just call me, I won't say his name, so let me just say, just call me NK. He put his own name. And our supposedly chief human resources officer that should actually be driving this thing comes to you and tells us that, but we're Africans. You can't call me by my first name.
It can't work.
This is an executive leader. Do you understand? And we have these things in organizations. If there is no leadership support and buy-in, leadership must drive learning. Nothing will change. I have led L&D teams. I have worked in organizations and I have seen it. As long as the leaders are not involved, nothing will happen. I've seen leaders call that your line manager to say, where is this person? Why did you allow him to go on training? When you have a leader like that is even telling your line manager, asking your line manager why he released you for training, will anything change? Nothing will definitely change. So for business owners and leaders owners here, you have to drive this change. You have to drive this change. There can't be learning transfer if the environment is not enabling. Culture is key. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tosin, any final word?
I think that's all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.